Okay, hello, Garnet here, and we're continuing with the Neurolight Practical Guide for Beginners, the step-by-step video commentary. And I'm here on page 8. This is the brain exercise part 1, building neuroplastic capacity. And here we're looking at what's entitled the basic 12-session protocol for building neuroplastic capacity. So this is basic in the sense that it has all the elements. It's a program that is full for the individual that has the ability and the commitment to sustain this over some period of time. And if a person is of significantly low vitality, brain fitness, or they have quite a serious issue that they're working to overcome, maybe they have brain damage, maybe in some cases, maybe they're working out of a stroke and they're in rehabilitation. There's quite a broad potential category here, but this is a person that is motivated, that they need to build up their brain fitness for any number of reasons, and their commitment has a proper framing of expectation. That what you want is slow and steady wins the race. You can't lie to the brain in neuroplasticity. You can't trick Mother Nature. I don't know how to say it exactly, except that the methodology here is conservative, because what you want is steps forward, steps forward, steps forward, and instead of 3 forward and 2 back and 2 forward and 1 back, instead of jostling up and down because you're kind of wanting to push the issue, this gives you a very reliable framework. And what'll happen typically is the person is just going to feel better. And now if you're doing this for yourself, you have a guideline here. It's not rigid, but if you modify it, there should be some reason for modifying it. This is a longer process, but it's a real safe bet. Now, when the Neurolight was first created, of course, I did all I did the designs and the methodologies and everything. So some people mistakenly think, well, when I began to use it, then because I'm such like a smart guy or something, that I must be doing the really advanced, super wowsy stuff. Now, of course, I had to experience everything when I made it, but when I came down to the time when it was finished and I began to use it for myself, I spent almost 3 months almost exclusively working in the brain gym with the brain food, the nasal light, because I know that it would be good for me. And I wasn't seeking excitement, because I had plenty of that in creating it, and a lot of other ways to have exciting brain experiences, mind experiences. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful. And every once in a while, because it's been, a chunk of time now, getting close, not exactly, but getting close to a year now, I do return to do brain tonic maintenance periodically, still to this day. It's like that with basic exercise. So let's look at this. Now, depending on when you got your document, because as of today, early September 2017, there's one little word I want you to change in your document. So if you had this from before September 2017, go to page 8, go to number 1, go down to E2. It reads, if available, do this session each day in a row. Change the word this to the word ah. Do a session. Do a session. And repeat that as you go down throughout all of them. I regret the fact that I put in the word this. It should be the word ah, and you'll see in a moment why I mean that. So I'll continue now, but you might even see here, my printed copy, I did a highlighter and a correction, but now I changed it in the document, so all the ones that are going out after this date will have this little change. All right. Now, this is for a person that has a low level of neuroplastic capacity, brain vitality, or brain fitness. And you recognize that by a lot of overt characteristics. And please look at the other videos. It breaks it all down. If you want to do assessments in a certain way, the simplest one, and I've said this in the video before, is if a person tends to check out or feel like they're falling asleep, or they slide sideways, they get kind of dopey during the session, that's a good indication, unless they're just physically tired, that's a good indication that their capacity is not adequate for the demand. Okay. Now, this is a 12-session protocol, and what you can do is you can do this over a period of time. And you'll notice as I go down that each one of the, like the number 1, the number 2, and so on, that what I'm saying is do it 3 times before you go to the next one. So, I mean, let's say that if you were doing it 3 days out of the week, that would mean that it would take 1 week to do number 1, another week to do 2, and 3, and 4. That means going through it 1 time takes a month. Now, if you can do it more quickly than that, meaning if you could do it every day, then of course you'll go through it more rapidly. But the idea here is, you just look at number 1 along with me. So this is the protocol. It gives you 12 sessions because there are 4, and you do each one 3 times before you switch. Okay. The suggestion is use the brain food, the nasal light, during the session. Hopefully they're using it every day for themselves at home or by themselves, whether you're doing it for yourself, you have one and you're using it, or the person comes to you for the sessions but they have their own nasal light. It's one of the most important things necessary to build up capacity because it introduces supplemental ATP, and we need that so that when we exercise the brain we have the available energy. Okay, go into the brain gym, go into trainings, choose the foundation level for coordination. You do that for 11 minutes. Fair enough? Easy enough? Pause 3 minutes, just rest between it, and then you go into the brain gym, the default mode network, and you do that for 11 minutes. So that's the basic thing. And after that, 3 to 5 minutes, don't eat and run. And that's the basic thing. It takes about a half an hour to do this, like this. Now, because the person has a lower level of brain fitness, vitality, or capacity, work with your light intensity at lower levels. Here I'm saying conservatively 5%. It could be more than that. Also, it's important to make sure that you consider the ambient light of the room. Now, if you take a flashlight in a daylight room and you turn on the flashlight, it doesn't really seem that bright. Take the same flashlight, same room, but it's dark, it's nighttime, turn on the flashlight, wow, it seems quite bright. And the difference is not the flashlight, the difference is the ambient degree of light in the room. So, I would say for most people where you're building capacity, especially if they're low vitality, between 5 to 10% is where you're going to be much of the time until it's really apparent that they have the appetite. And it may take a while. Always err on the conservative side. It's much better to not do quite as much than to do too much. That's a really important principle. So, be sensitive to the ambient light, be sensitive to them. Ask them after the first few times, how is that? Do you feel like you might like it a little brighter? Would you like to try it? Make a note, nudge it up. It's like, how spicy, if you like chili in your food, how spicy do you want it? It's like, oh, that's too much. Or how hot do you like your tea? Some people sip really hot tea. Some people like it more tepid. Some people in between. So for the brain sensitivity to the light, of course, you also have the volume in the headphones, but that tends to be a little bit more neutral for most people. Although if they have the ability, with the volume adjustment, move it up or down. So the idea here is, if you're following page 8, number 1, neuroplastic change, and this is the coordination, the default mode network, you'll see here it says, however, if you do it every day or every other day or something, do this one 3 times before you move to number 2. I think that's easy enough to understand. And it says, if available, do this. Remember, change that to do a session each day in a row, if you can, if it's available. If it's yours, or the person is willing to be there that often, which is unlikely if they have to come to you, do it each day in a row. But if not, at least once or twice a week. Now, during this time, they can't rely 100% on the Neurolight to really make that much change. Half an hour, if they come 2 or 3 times a week, it's only an hour and a half total compared to all the time. The basic thing is they have to use movement, mental, and sensory to give a good result. But you can't be that demanding because you're wanting to build. Fantastic, no problem, because the truth is that if they're getting enough sleep, number 1, if they can practice some deep relaxation, maybe do some breathing or listen to nice music, and some amount of somatic activity, because the body is the brain is the body, and encourage them to do according to their ability, about a 30-minute walk 4 or 5 times a week. If they're getting some walking, meaning some activity, if they're doing some conscious relaxation, which is incredibly beneficial, and if they're getting adequate sleep, then this has a very, very, very good chance of being an impact, maybe even an impressive impact. So this is page 8, the basic 12-session protocol for building capacity, and what you'll see is that number 1 is repeated 3 times, whether you can do it every day or a few times a week, do it 3 times. Then you move to number 2, it's the same structure, but you see now we move to flexibility and a different brain network. 2B is foundation flexibility, and 2D is cognitive control network. You do that 3 times, 3 sessions. So you do one of these sessions each day in a row, if you can. If not, spread it out. Then once you've done it 3 times, go to number 3. What you'll see is now you've moved to endurance and back again to the default mode network. Same deal. Then you go to number 4, and now you're in strength and back to cognitive control. So you've only got 4 choices, and each choice, meaning number 1, 2, 3, and 4, you do it 3 times in a row. Whether you're doing it every day, which will take you through it pretty quickly, or whether you're spreading it out and skipping a day. If you're doing a session less than twice a week, it's really tough to really see benefit in a reasonable amount of time. It's just not enough. It's like doing an exercise once a week. Okay, that's good, but better than nothing, but really not much better. So a couple of times a week is a reasonable minimum. Doing one every day is quite tolerable. And if you want, you could do like 5 days in a row and skip the weekends. That's okay. That's very conventional for exercise, taking a walk. You don't have to do it 7 days a week to get the benefit. 4 or 5 times a week and you get good benefit. That shows you the way. So if you've got somebody, whether it's yourself or someone else, whether because of age, circumstance, challenges at a younger age, injury, disease, whatever, and you know that they have to build up their brain capacity, the neuroplastic capacity, here you've got a well-structured, easy to follow, conservative but yet still effective methodology using the brain light with confidence. You know what to do. It says exactly what sessions, it says in what order. Really the only thing that's up to you would be 3 things. One is the light and volume, intensity, get feedback. The second would be how often they could do it, you could do it, whether it's every day or whether every other day or at least a couple times a week. And the third thing is that this person, you or whomever, has to be committed enough to be getting a modest amount of regular activity. Call it exercise, call it taking a walk, whatever you call it. A little mini tramp is beautiful if you can't get outside or walk much. Or any kind of stationary bicycle, it's so simple. And try to decrease stress with conscious, deeper relaxation. Sit there, follow your breath for 10 minutes. There are a lot of progressive relaxation techniques. Just do something you like. Read a book where you've been too busy. And thirdly, really important, adequate sleep. Because sleep deprivation is a real eroding dynamic in neuroplastic change. And here we want the change to be fundamental, meaning that you're just getting better at responding to signals. Okay, now what you can imagine is over a period of time, and this will be more evident in some of the others, you can go from foundation to intermediate. Makes sense, right? That's going to be, I think, more clear when we talk about a progressive methodology. So this is kind of a standard or basic protocol. Page 8, number 1, 2, 3, 4. I hope that does it. Make sure on that E2 that you change, if available, do this session. No, if available, do a session, meaning one of these each day at a time. Okay, thanks.